I haven't posted in a while and I wasn't planning to do a video, but I was going through my news and different things. I have updating my lists, especially with planetary issues and more so than political noise and that actual quakes and that the things that matter at the end of everything. And with that, obviously, I came across some older videos of stuff politically speaking. And I actually, over the weekend, and before, I was telling my son about different people with values and that, and I had an opportunity to have a teaching moment with him because of certain things that he did himself. And I was teaching him the difference between doing what is right versus just doing what is convenient. And so with that, I gave him the example of someone like Edward Snowden, you know, someone who was in a very positive position when he was working for as a contractor, or as a employee for the NSA. Someone who is very smart, very capable, someone who has done a lot of amazing things, very knowledgeable. I don't even know why my camera did that, but you guys can see that. And the position that he was on to, do something for the world that was going to cause him that. And it's not because it is a standard that his actions should have led him there, but when you live in a world where, people who do evil things are celebrated and elevated and awarded, obviously it becomes a challenge to stand up for truth. So with that, his actions, he well didn't have to do that. He was very privileged. He was being so smart. So for anyone who hasn't watched the Snowden movie, I recommend it. It gives you a background on who Edward is, and you can understand how he didn't do this for attention, or he didn't do this because he was bored or his life was uninteresting, but because he actually believed he was doing something positive. And also we can look through time how his actions have only led to positive um, actions afterwards, from others and so on, and how he has caused zero damage to any of the things that all those who actually have caused damage to American people and others in the world have. So, with that in mind, I use this as a teaching opportunity again for my son with some of the things, and I explained to him how it is avoiding accountability for your wrongs is not the best thing to do, and people who stand up for the truth are usually not in privilege and bravados, surrounded by bravados. My son is aware of some of the things I've gone through for obvious reasons, and I've explained to him and I've shown him the background story of why his mother and him have been harassed so badly the past 2 years, with all the things I've been through. First, taking a positive stand against the nuclear down thing, and then being a customer of an elitist who happened to sit in Donald Trump at me and myself not being aware, and so on. Then having to deal with, these crappy musicians coming and ripping me off and said, since I'm an artist as well, as a punishment for my positive action. And so while these people get elevated and all they do right about is, loot, destroy, violence, darkness, and they celebrate these things, they make fun and they post pro-pedophilia content and so on, Tesla shorts being sold as entertain like Liberace. And if you know who my video was stopped. Liberace was a known pedophile and statutory rapist, and that's still how the Tesla website has the short, selling their shorts, etc. And then you have Grimes, Elon Musk's wife, posting pedophilic content last year, glorifying fascism, and so on. So once you see these things, these people have been elevated and glorified, while I'm being ripped off, while I'm being harassed, while I'm being followed, while people are actually physically attacking me as I posted, throwing rocks, people in the building to harassing me, etc. A person who doesn't do anything to anyone, And my mistake again was, I don't consider a mistake, which was taking a positive stand in the middle of pretty much the start of a nuclear war. So with all of this, I also talked to him about Daniel Ellsberg. I am sure how to pronounce his last name properly, but for those who don't know who he is, you should look into the Pentagon Papers, and it connects all the back way to Vietnam, the stand against the war, and so on. And when you look at his story and his background and what he's been through, all the things that I've explained over is still getting cut off. Anyway, with the Vietnam War and so on, the Pentagon's paper, something very good to look. And as I was saying, all the things he's been through, etc., very relatable to what myself have been through, and so on. With the attempts of framing, times to blackmail, even though I don't have anything to be blackmailed, so try to frame me as things that I'm not, associate me with things that I'm not, etc., etc. So bringing it all back, I want to mention the whole coup d'etat and the whole attack on, the American institutions. And while these people who want to call themselves freedom fighters and fighting for liberty, you're doing it wrong. Because if you really believe the things you're saying, here's number one point. Why do it in honor of someone who is being so terrible to American people? Separate politics. You can hate the left with a passion. Look at Donald Trump's actions on American people. The protest in the summer wanting to use heat rays. I'm giving one small example of several things. Heat rays don't know if you're Republican, if you're Trumpist or not, okay? But also, why would you think that's okay to use just because people are protesting your negative actions towards people of color, the abuse of power, and so on? Just one example. Why would you think that taking over the Capitol in honor of such a person, it's okay? Once you look at Donald Trump gaming of the stock market and so on, something's not up. Second, how can you compare taking such violent, destructive action to something positive, or compare yourself to someone like Edward Snowden or like Daniel Ellsberg? People who have themselves put themselves in situations they didn't have to. They both had very well paying jobs, very respectable positions. They both were admired by their employers because they were smart, hardworking, knowledgeable, and yet in a very eloquent manner, they took the actions that they needed to. They weren't hiding under she say games, indirects, trying to frame people into little mind games, etc. too. And I'm saying that is because there are a bunch of people playing indirect games with me. As I mentioned, Grimes, Elon Musk, all of that, people in that circle, Tesla cultists, Grimes cultists, pretending like I'm associating with them. That is cowardice. My name, my face is forward. I'm direct, I'm open. I mentioned that. Why? Because games and things like that are only for people who are trying to cause harm, destruction. If you cannot be your face, your name open with facts, you are part of the problem. Now, I'm going to bring it back to this. Do not compare your takeover and violent rioting to someone like Edward Snowden, to someone like Daniel Ellsberg movements, who have people who have taken themselves, put themselves in the positions that they have in time to stand up for actual justice. And their actions have actually caused positive impact over time. So no, I do not think that there is anything woke about what happened in the US. And I'm not going to speak for them, but knowing and seeing how they talk, the message that they represent, I seriously doubt that Edward or Daniel also would agree that, those actions recently in the Capitol represent anything of freedom or standing up for justice. And I, too, don't think so.